Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Well, chaotic music to wind this whole thing down on this chaotic Sine Die Eve. It's Wednesday, episode number 59 for Pints of Politics.
Luke Kuechly.
Yeah, the one and only Luke Kuechly episode. Everybody knows him. Great all-star, all-pro from the Carolina Panthers.
Hey, he's doing pretty good with the draft and our GM, too, over there.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Well, we still don't like the owner.
Yeah, but he's doing pretty good. Good draft picks this year.
Yeah. Well, tell the two listeners where we're at.
We are at the College of Hospitality, Retail, and Sports Management, the Beverage Education Laboratory, here at...
Hey, for the two listeners...
Here at what?
Oh, the flagship, the premier university of South Carolina.
I teed it up.
Everybody knows that. Sorry, man. But yeah, this is sort of an annual thing now. This is the reg where we come hang out for Sine Die. Thanks for our hosts, USC, for hosting us here at the Bev Lab. This place is awesome.
Yeah.
This is the best kept secret on campus. I was telling right before we started the show, I had someone from the USC paper. You know, they have like a news station over there at the social media lab that we've held the show before. And she was literally doing an interview on me about a bill or something that was passed out. And I said, hey, do you even know about the Bev Lab? And she was like, what? She's like, we have a beverage lab? And I said, yeah. And I was like, it's the best place on campus. So to talk about that a little bit is Robby.
We ain't going to hold you for 20 minutes this year.
Yeah.
3-minute intro, exactly what we do.
Tell the listeners what's the offering this week. What are we drinking?
So right now y'all have got the pale lager that we just kegged up a couple weeks ago. And then we've also got our pale ale that we made, and then a pumpkin cold brew that we have.
What you think?
That's good.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Good smoothie.
It's like your favorite Bud Light.
Beat me to it, son. See, he's getting quick. But yeah, thanks for having us, man. You want to tell us a little bit about y'all's program, what y'all do? I mean, if you left it up for me and Guffey, we'd probably just tell people, look, come enter this program, learn how to brew beer and all that good stuff. But there's probably some little more details to it.
The beverage industry is a huge industry,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean we're talking billions of dollars, and so we're teaching our students not only how to brew beer, but also the marketing aspect of it, how to develop grain bills to be able to make the beer, how we sell it and all those type things. So it's not just about brewing and tasting, although that's fun. It's also about how you make money at it and how you become successful.
Okay, so you tie in some business course aspects to it and all that good stuff. And again, Dillip's out here somewhere. This is literally workforce development for the hospitality industry. It's a booming part of the economy here in our state, especially along the coast, Rock Hills. I mean, we're bringing it with the amateur sports.
Yes.
Restaurant retail
Greenville has an amateur sport
just
in brewery.
Yeah. So, well, hell, man, we're not going to keep you long.
Yeah.
I know there's some folks out there who need some cold beverages, but man, thanks for all that y'all do here.
Absolutely.
At the Bev Lab, and appreciate the workforce development and the beer as well.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you guys for being here.
All right.
This is one of my favorites.
Thanks, Robby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Candace. What can you say? So today's guest, we have
one of our special guests.
Yeah. Candace Carroll with Americans for Prosperity. I've seen a video of you explaining the tax bill that we just went through.
House Bill, 4126 that we just got through?
And it is very complicated. I know Leadership Ways and Means has been working on it, but I thought that you did probably the best explanation in a short time period.
Oh, thank you.
To get it out. And I really would love to have you explain.
Yeah, but let's back up just a little bit. Tell the two listeners about you, maybe a little bit about Americans for Prosperity, what you guys do, sort of, we're very familiar with you, this being our second term. But tell a little bit of folks about what you do, what this organization does, and then let's get into the tax reform bill.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys also for having me. This is a really cool venue. So I'm honored to be here and join your podcast. I am one of your two listeners every
awesome.
week, so
appreciate it.
Enjoy tuning in. So Americans for Prosperity is a national grassroots public policy-based organization. So we work every single day to try to tear down barriers that are inhibiting Americans from being able to reach their full potential. That's on things like school school choice. That's on things like regulations. That's on things like taxes that you guys tackled this week. And so we really try to bring the everyday voice to the State House. There are a lot of lobbyists at the State House who are paid by their industries from a variety of different capacities, but a lot of times the average mom, dad, teacher, they can't get there to advocate on behalf of themselves or their families.
Right.
And so we try to bridge that void for those grassroots individuals to you guys.
And I will say, meeting you in our first term, it was great to talk to you when we started talking about some of the issues that I think are those 80-20 type issues, right? When it comes to conservatives, when you and I first talked, I was like, this sounds like someone I could speak common sense, normal, like dinner table type issues with.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, we need more of this.
But even as we've gained more knowledge and we start digging down in the weeds, she's right there in it.
Yeah,
She knows.
right. Right. So yeah, thanks for joining us.
Of
And
course.
so let's talk about this historic tax reform. We had a press conference, about a little over a month ago or so, and I know this has been in the works much longer than that. There's a lot of things that sort of go unseen before that press conference, but
I mean, it was our number one agenda in the Republican caucus this year.
Yep, and we basically, the goal was to try to get to a fair flat tax for everybody, decouple from the federal government, and then try to find a roadmap to a zero personal income tax here in the state of South Carolina. So when we first rolled that out, I think the governor was there, Senate was there, House leadership was there, because this was a all-branch government coming together to try to bring historic tax reform to the state of South Carolina. We got the fiscal impact shortly after, and there was a little bit of challenges that we experienced. We saw how some of the lower income folks had a little bit of a tax increase that, we needed to rethink how we retool some of how we approached those lower income brackets. And so the product that we saw this week that we produced out of the House, I thought addressed some of those concerns. So Candace, if you want to sort of dive in and tell us, sort of your opinions on what we got out of the House this week.
Absolutely. And I want to take a step back, too, and say we sat down at Americans for Prosperity about this time last year and said, where do we see South Carolina getting over the next 10 years? What do we think are something that we should tackle? And eliminating the state income tax was at the top of our list as a 10-year goal. And so to see you guys come in this year, one, set it as a caucus agenda item at the very top of your agenda, and then two, say we're going to tackle this head on, was just tremendous for us to be part of those conversations as well. So wanted to make sure I mentioned that for your listeners, that this is something we've also been eyeing, also been working on. And so what this bill does is it sets South Carolina on a pathway to eliminate the state income tax, which is just amazing. As someone who grew up here in South Carolina, to have that on the cusp of the horizon once the Senate passes it and gets it to the governor is something that I think you guys should be truly proud of, and our state should be truly proud of as well.
Yeah.
100%. And it doesn't do tax swaps. That's a question we've got as well. Well, how are they going to offset this? Are they going to raise the gas tax or sales tax or property taxes? You guys aren't doing any of that, which is a lot of what we're seeing in other states. Lawmakers are falling into that trap. Mississippi just did.
Yep.
And
Kansas.
You guys are like, no, we want to keep this to a clean bill. We want to make sure that we are helping South Carolinians across the board. And so, one, you're eliminating it over time, but immediately you're taking that top rate of 6.2% down to 5.39%, which lets us be much more competitive with North Carolina and Georgia, which is tremendous. We will no longer have the highest tax in the Southeast.
Yep.
And those states are now looking to you guys. Actually saw a video from a public policy council in Georgia recently that said, hey, we have to do more because South Carolina is getting ready to eliminate their income tax.
Here's a great footnote. So I'm over in Augusta in April and run into some Georgia legislators, and I'm talking trash to them about how even though our effective tax rate is below Georgia's. I was talking trash like, oh, no. I think it was actually the governor's chief of staff who I was talking to. Kim's chief of staff, I was like, no. We're about to beat y'all.
Right.
Beat y'all bad, son. Because we're not offsetting it with a sales tax.
Right.
We're not offsetting it with raising property taxes. And I think even over in Georgia, they got it out of the Senate by one vote. So I think what you're saying is the most responsible way to deliver tax reform to our citizens. We are not offsetting. We are going right at it and saying, nope, we're going to cut $400 million in year one with this tax reform, and we do with these economic triggers in place. When we see that revenue rise 5%, it triggers down, and we keep ratcheting that thing down with a roadmap to zero. So.
Absolutely. And responsible, I would say, is absolutely true in the fact that, like, you can't eliminate it overnight. That
Right.
would be irresponsible and would be really volatile for the state.
Exactly.
And so where you can say, hey, we're going to put these triggers in place. If these triggers are met, we're going to continue to decrease it. And very responsible triggers at that. And so understanding that South Carolina has seen that growth year over year over year, and
Right.
that's going to continue. And if a recession hits, then you guys are setting this into statute. So not just are you saying, hey, we want to do this, but future lawmakers who sit in your seats, this will still be part of what they have to do by law to continue to reduce
That's
it.
one of the things that I love about it. So out of all the things that I've gotten excited about, and I'll be honest, whenever we were first doing it, I wasn't as excited. But as I started trying to dig into our original tax plan, because the narrative, everybody kept saying, oh, you want to raise taxes. And it's like, no one's dumb enough to really
Right.
believe that.
Right.
But it brings you back to the old saying, be careful, history's watching. This is something that whenever we come into office, would you think that we would be part of history
Yeah.
in shaping South Carolina? You know, we sit here and we argue bills and we argue laws, but this is something that is truly going to impact
It
future
is,
generations.
and you know, a lot of times you and I have talked about this. The timing of you and I entering state politics, having no plan to ever
Yeah.
think that we were going to be in that
Right.
chamber, right? And to be here at this time to hit on some of these issues that, again, are dinner table issues, where you and I, as young adults starting businesses or whatever, we're like, God, why are we paying such a high personal income
Yeah.
tax? Man, if I was up there, I would I would get rid of this damn thing,
Right.
you know? And now we're actually getting an opportunity to, and again, this process of where we started with this tax reform and then what we actually got out of the House demonstrates how our caucus listened to the voters. We listened to individual members. You and I are only second termers, but I remember raising my hand like, guys, look, I love this idea of going to 399 and then 249. But why stop there?
Yeah.
Right.
Let's go to zero.
Yeah.
Like, go to zero.
Once we have the path to
That's
zero,
correct.
that's
Because
that's
the more
important
folks
part.
that get into this state, more folks paying property taxes and sales taxes and gas taxes. We could eliminate the personal income tax. So I just love the idea of this bill. I love the progression of it. And I think it speaks volumes for what the Republican caucus did as a body to get this delivered over to the Senate.
Absolutely. And you talked a little bit about that trepidation. I think it's important for your listeners to understand that very rarely does a bill get to the governor in its very original form in which
Right.
it was introduced.
Yes.
Like, there was some heartache around, well, they're going back to the drawing board. That's just part of the legislative process, and something you absolutely should do is take those considerations into account, figure out how to make it better, and then come back at it. And I'm interested to see what the Senate does with this bill, right? Because they're always saying, well, we're going to go lower. It's hard to go lower than zero. So what are they going to do when it gets over
I
there?
know. If you leave it to the Senate, they'll mess anything up, you know? Hey, we have any senators as guests today?
I don't know. They're still in session.
Yes, I think they're going late tonight. Yeah.
Well, Candace, thank you so much for
Of
coming on.
course.
Thank you for everything that AFP does throughout the state, throughout the country.
Yeah.
You know, I think the grassroots organization is, I always call these other groups that are attacking us the AstroTurf.
Yeah. Well, and it's
organizations,
great
so-
also to, you know, there's groups like you and others that help educate legislators when it comes to tax policy, where it comes to
Or school choice.
School choice,
I
yeah.
spent a day down here learning
Yep.
about school choice from AFP.
Yep.
Yeah. So appreciate all the work you do and
Absolutely.
your organization does, and thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. You guys
All right.
enjoy.
Thank you. All right, so our special guest, and I actually picked music. Everybody's looking at me cross-eyed. Apologize for
I hate
that.
to say I don't even know that music. My kids do, but I don't.
I love some hip hop.
I mean, I like good hip hop.
Yeah. Oh man, Two
Just kidding.
Chains.
Yeah.
So
I only go back to the 90 hip hop.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I
Prefer the 80s, but
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some Run
well-
DMC. That's what we should have done.
This is
Sugar
our
Hill gang.
Sugar Hill.
I didn't know we were talking disco.
Yeah. Want to welcome our
Rappers
special
for
guest, Speaker Murrell Smith. Thanks for coming. This is our Sine Die episode. Annually, we're now coming to the Bev Lab here at USC. Thanks for hosting.
I'm kind of excited about doing it this way because we really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
And
One
Sine
more
Die is
day.
just, you know, there's so much that could happen and so much that could not happen depending on the games that get played.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
typically we've been doing it on Sine Die Thursday. We have found out there's a tradition that Bourbon in the Backroom guys do their Sine Die across the street from the State House. So we're like,
Yeah.
hey, we're running into some headwinds there. Why don't we do it on Wednesday nights?
So we picked the zoo night.
Yeah,
To do it.
yeah, that's right.
No pun intended.
So this is Representative Guffey and I's second term. This is your second term as Speaker. How's it going so far?
Oh, it's lots of fun. You haven't noticed? So you know, it's an honor to serve the citizens of South Carolina in this capacity. Politics have changed a lot since first got elected.
Yeah.
It's a lot different, a lot more vitriolic, a lot more gotcha politics, and a lot more people who are here to be showmen and to rather than try to be statesmen, and you know, and that's a little disappointing, but that's the world we live in right now.
Yeah.
I remember whenever I first came in because I was, I guess, more of the new school politics of the social media. And I'd come in and I'd get so mad, like, why can't we just go back at them? And you'd always say, the adults are here to govern.
I know, but
We're
the other
here to go.
sometimes
govern.
that social media stuff feels good, you know.
Oh, I just do it as my own voice now. It's the difference.
So yeah, let's get into some of the bigger ticket items that the Republican caucus, you know, under your leadership, we were trying to get done this year in the 126th General Assembly. We just got out tort reform.
We did. And it was a liquor liability, and I think it was a great compromise that we got to. It's hard for me as a lawyer to talk about this in layman's terms. I had
Right.
a friend who called me up, owned a business today. He said, "Did y'all get tort reform done?" I said, "What part?" We did liquor liability. And he said, "All I care about is joint and several." And I think that really was the holy grail of all tort reform was
Right.
joint
Right.
and several. And so I started talking. He was like, "Look, I don't understand a word you said. Just tell me."
Just say yes.
If 1%, if I'm 1% at fault, and mine at 99%, do I have to pay pay the other 99%? And I said, absolutely not.
Right.
But that wasn't the law to begin with. It was a great talking point in it. We have what's called modified joint and several. But at the end of the day, what we really did was reform the part about who was on a verdict form. And that's the most important part of it, is when the jury makes determination who's at fault, they ought to be able to consider all the parties who were involved, not just the one that the plaintiff decided to sue.
Right.
And I think that's what really makes this bill good, is that we made it more simplistic than what the Senate had. I mean, the Senate tortured themselves over
An omnibus bill.
Yeah, about 9 weeks in an omnibus bill. A lot of things were very good in it, and a lot of things were not very good in it. But at the end of the day, I think they got tired and they created a more of a compromise amendment that created a lot of ambiguities and complications, in my opinion. But, you know, we worked hard with the Senate in trying to find some resolution here, and I'll give it to Jay Jordan and to Weston Newton.
Absolutely.
They worked overtime, and Shane Massey and Michael Johnson deserve a lot of credit, as well as President Alexander. And we were able to get a bill that I think is fair. Now, they're debating it right now, so we may regret our words tonight and say that we were unable to get tort reform. But, you know, but I think that there's a good chance that Senate pass it, and it will help us be able to have some certainty in our legal system. But more importantly, what I think most of all of us are concerned about is the bars and restaurants.
Right.
They have been caught up into a larger tort reform debate over the last 2 years. And while their premiums continue to go up, our insurance market continues to contract in South Carolina. And so I see this as a two-step process. I think the first step is to do what we did yesterday, and adopt the joint several recommendations and adopt the liquor liability portions of it. And number two, we need to come back and find out why these insurance companies continue to raise rates. I don't know about y'all, but I got my bill for the insurance in March, and it continues to rise every year, and it rises not hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars. And these insurance companies have to reconcile for me the fact that while they're raising our rates, we have no claims, they're making record profits. And
Yeah.
those not reconciling in my book. And maybe there's something that's there, and maybe they can come and enlighten us. But what has to happen is they must show up and testify. And the MO that happened over in the Senate, and what I've heard down in Florida, is they want to refuse to testify. They can't trade secrets. And, I think what you're seeing across the state is a tremendous rise in insurance rates, especially along the coast, and the state's having to come and pick up those costs by moving the critical line back and being in the wind and hail.
Right.
And, I'm really concerned about that process, and we got to get to the bottom of it. So it's great that we do some type of legal reform, but it's got to be followed up with some insurance reform.
Yeah, now I'll tell you one of the things, with our original liquor liability bill that we passed out, I thought that we made the necessary changes this year to get it to where I would support it. The one thing that I'm disappointed in ours is, but I will take tort reform any way that
Right.
it comes in order to try and save these bars and restaurants, some of these contractors that are struggling so bad. But, in our bill, we had strengthening DUI laws.
Right.
And that would go a long way. But, that was taken out, but hopefully we can address that in a separate law, and because I think that's causing a lot of the problems that we have.
It absolutely is. And the Senate was insistent that come out. Chairman Newton fought hard for that. That was something he was very proud of to put in the liquor liability bill that originally passed the House. But at the end of the day, I think what came out is that DUI reform and strengthen penalties and taking some of the loopholes out is a big priority for the Senate next year. They didn't want that to get into the way of the debate to say, oh, we strengthened the penalty, so we don't need to do anything else. So I think that was the logic that they provided to us, and so they made a commitment that that'll be probably first out of the box for them next legislative year. And so if that's the case, and we get some DUI reform and crack down on the repeat drunk drivers and those who are endangering our streets right now, it would be a good step forward.
Yeah, and what I liked about our liquor liability is that we wanted to incentivize the good actors, right, and also penalize the bad actors, because that's when you throw everybody in one pool, the folks who are acting responsibly get put in the same boat with the bad actors who are just throwing tequila shots and
And then hopping into a car.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that's the one thing I will give. Jason Elliott and Jay West were very involved in the ad hoc we did 2 years ago. I think y'all were there. And they came back with some great recommendations. And also the bad actors are in the bars and restaurants as well. Those who act responsibly, who do alcohol server training, who are making sure there's quality control there, they are going to step down their $1 million limits and allow them to be purchased lesser insurance. And the thing that we hung up a little bit on was about the card readers, the ID readers that they have. And if you're open after midnight, the 12, as we call them, the 12 to 4 a.m. Bars, then you have to have those card readers, because that's where the young people are coming in. That's where the shots are being served.
Yeah, right.
That's where people are getting weaponized and getting on the road and having some of the worst accidents, which usually result in death or very serious injury.
Yeah.
and so I was talking with Representative Martin, before we hit the record button, and him being a lawyer legislator.
Yeah, we do have Representative David Martin, Representative Kathy Landing sitting in here with us while we're recording, and a few more outside.
But we did talk, and I said, hey, as an attorney, what do you think? He's like, and I said, yeah, I think businesses and, everyone had to give a little, right?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times what happens in consensus building, right? Not every side's going to get 100% of what they want. If Representative Martin, you can deal with 70%. You're still getting fed. So,
Yeah.
Well, and I think Governor McMaster said it best when he started off about tort reform. He's an attorney, and I mean, he's done both sides like me. He was mainly a defense attorney like I am, but at the end of the day, he said what we want to do is make it better for businesses and protect those who are legitimately injured by bad actors. And I think we kind of threaded that needle in that regard to make sure that you're not going to have some draconian laws passed that will harm people who are seriously injured and need compensation, but also provide some guarantees and some sureties to our businesses, and that's very important.
And I'm excited about the insurance rate ad hoc committee.
Who's
Got
chair of
assigned
that?
it. That is, I don't even want to say his name. Is it worth saying who's the chair? I'm just kidding.
Man.
It's Representative Brewer.
He may not be on that committee much longer.
Man
Brewer's
can't tie his
got-
shoelaces.
No, we love Brewer. We love to mess with him.
Yeah. What about tax? Speaking of threading the needle, tax reform.
Yes.
It was a great job. I mean, of how that came together. Y'all know that's been a big priority of ours throughout the past 2 years really. And it's from a standpoint that we're not competitive with our neighbors. North Carolina and Georgia have reduced their tax rates over the years. They're much more competitive, and we were tied to the federal taxable income, and that's where we started. So all the deductions and all the exemptions and tax credits given by the federal government was adopted by South Carolina before you even started getting South Carolina deductions. And there are a lot of things that was brought out in the debate. Brandon Newton did a wonderful job on that debate.
Yes,
the other
he
day.
really did.
He tore it up, but he brought out the fact that you can get deductions for travel expenses to have an abortion. You could have travel expenses and transgender surgery is tax deductible. So there were really some horrible tax deductions, and plus, think about this: 48% of the taxpayers in the state, I mean not in the state, in this country, are not paying taxes because we have decided that we're going to exempt certain people from paying taxes, and the tax system is a broad-based fair tax, and
Right.
and that's what we adopted in South Carolina. I know we caught a lot of grief on that plan that we had, but trying to lower our rate, flatten the rate, and to expand the base is always the way that you should do this.
Right.
And in fact, I mean, I've been around here so long, I guess, that you see those were the dream tax system back then. I
It's a
believe
Republican ideal.
it was, and
Yeah, correct.
and all of a sudden, we got now that when you flatten the base, nobody should ever get their taxes raised. You look at the Trump tax cuts that he has that we all herald these days, but he raised taxes on individuals.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of somebody's going to get harmed and somebody's going to win. And I said there's winners and losers in every tax debate, but I understand the trepidation people have when you do monumental tax reform,
Right.
and that there are losers, and that when you look at it and there was a certain percentage, over 50, it's like 56, 57% were going to get their taxes raised. That causes concern for individuals and especially politicians who those people vote for you. So I got it. And so, what was good is you had the Ways and Means Committee let the legislative process work, hear the outrage from the citizens or people who did not like it, come back, work on
Yep.
the plan, and reform the plan, and find something where 24% of the people would have their taxes raised in the state. Wherein I'll remind everyone that 44% of taxpayers in South Carolina pay zero.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that really a tax raise, or is that making people have to participate in the system?
Now that's actual math. That's not PACE math.
Yes. and then when you look at it, if you drill down even deeper, people from out of state pay income taxes to South Carolina because their jobs here. And so really when you look at 16% of South Carolinians, 16.9, so I'll give them 17%, of South Carolinians actually will see an increase in their taxes over here. And the thing, you've seen the charts, we've all debated them, we've all looked at them. But what's the most amazing thing is you have people at the bottom of the income brackets who pay zero. And then you have people in the million plus that pay zero.
Right.
And so it's not a game. If your people are going to get taxed, we all ought to get taxed equally and not play games. And that's what the federal system, being tied to the federal system, allows people to do, is play games and get out having paying their fair share.
I think it's one of the best things that we can look back and say I was a part of this.
Yeah, no, I'm really proud of how we got to this end result. Really, again, when we first pitched the idea, I was like, man, let's skip phase one and go right to 249. Let's figure out how we can cut $2-something plus billion. But that was probably a bite too big. But
we could have used Senate math and just said it.
or no disrespect to my friend Justin Bamberg, but Justin Bamberg math, let's just go to zero. $7 billion right out the budget. And
would that cost $7?
$7 billion. We have a $14.4 billion budget, so half our budget be gone.
Yeah.
No roads, no teachers, no troopers.
And prisoners are coming home with everybody.
And Representative Guffey and I were having
you
a
get a prisoner.
good
You
time.
get a prisoner. You get a prisoner.
We were having a good time about Representative Pace last night when he was asking us to delay the vote or delay the,
why
doing
rush
this
it?
tax reform, why rush it? He literally started in the beginning of his speech by saying that 24% of folks would see a tax increase. By the time he left the well, he was saying 45%. And I'm like, what kind of math is that? But, it's good for a video clip, I guess.
Yes.
But, all right, let's get into energy.
Energy,
that was something we tackled early on.
It's the reason I came requesting to move to LCI because my focus being on tech. I thought energy is a top priority.
Yep. And let's thank, a former member, Jay West, for doing all the heavy lifting.
Yes.
A term ago. I know Gil Gatch has given Jay plenty of hell in the lobby, like, hey, man, what took you so long? This wasn't really that hard.
Hey, I'm going to tell you, Gil has done, and I'd never worked with Gil on a committee prior to this. Only thing I'd really known of Gil was on the floor. And whenever he was chair, I was like, oh, let's go see how this goes. He has been a rock star as a committee chairman as far as being prepared. There is never a question that's asked that he can't back it up, have the information, and it's like he knows it off the top of his head. I've been very impressed with his knowledge or the ability to retain the knowledge of going through this entire process.
Well, and tell the two listeners a little bit about, because this was something that you wanted to push last term, right?
We did, and we pushed it. We passed it in the House, and the Senate said they ran out of time. But ironically, when we were doing tort reform, we had plenty of time when for 3 weeks should get tort reform out.
Look,
but
it's
energy
when I talk to my
reform
wife,
is way too complicated.
See, what happened was
so you got to love the Senate. But at the end of the day, we passed that. We started the conversation. But to the Senate's credit, when they said they weren't going to do it and they didn't do it, and we tried everything we could to get them to take it up, and it did not work. But they did form a committee in the fall, and it was good for them because some of them really started to realize this is a real issue. We have a real problem in South Carolina, and we need to fix it. And they moved that bill quickly when it came over here, and so it was there's always some differences, but where it really bogged down to was over the data centers. And, I think a lot of us believe that data centers are essential to a 21st century economy. Data centers are not subsidizing ratepayers right now. And so those are issues that we had to deal with. And we were able to get a conference report. And I'm proud to say today that the Senate passed energy. So that will be going to the governor's desk and be signed into law.
That's awesome.
And let me tell you what's going to happen. And this is what I'm most proud of, is you are now going to see a new gas line come into South Carolina.
Coming up out of Jasper, Colleton?
Going to Colleton County over there to Kennedy's for where it is, and then also probably may see, so you'll see the combined cycle plant, the joint bill between Santee Cooper and Dominion. You likely are see one more, maybe not as large, but another one in a nearby county because of the gas line coming. The gas line, y'all know this from hearing our ORI delegation say all the time that we don't have enough gas to power the restaurants in Myrtle Beach, much less any industry over there, and you will see gas lines running over there, and you will see Duke will now commit to constructing new power plants. Again, they'll probably be gas plants, and hopefully we're going to see Santee Cooper's RFP. There was a lot of suitors that came to that to deal with, to bid on restarting VC Summer, since they had Vogel that has completed their 2 reactors now. There's a path forward, and I hopefully do that at the expense of private investment and capital, where the ratepayers or the taxpayers won't have to be on the hook for that. And I think that would be a huge win. And if that is, you will see a nuclear renaissance around South Carolina, because they're talking about if they get it at VC Summer, they may go to the old Lee site up in Cherokee County.
Yeah, right.
And then you look at what we have over there with the Savannah River plant, a lot of technology over there. And so the good thing that I've been doing is working with the Trump administration that's come in here, and they're excited about seeing nuclear in South Carolina, because that's what they're pushing. And I think we'll be a leader on that issue.
I think we'll be the leader for the next 2 revolutions.
And man, I'm telling you,
through.
I mean, what he's talking about, you got Duke, Dominion, Santee Cooper, Southern right over there in Vogel. Once you get that energy, you now have Savannah River site. That's a federally qualified site that competes with a lot of other national sites. That Department of Energy has just put out an RFI. This university is very interested in other ones to look into that. Then you start talking about high performance computing, quantum computing. Then you start talking about economic development magnet for some of these.
He who holds the data will hold the currency.
Right. I mean, you're
as
talking
we're
about
moving
dominoes
forward.
falling. So
Yeah, and this was what was holding us back. And how I became interested in it was that we had a plant, a facility that is over in Camden, and I think they were making magnets for e-vehicles. I mean, for batteries and things to that effect. And they were so successful they needed to expand the plant. They came over to Sumter. They said, you're not far from us. We went to dinner with them. They came back after. They said, look, it's between you and Georgia, but y'all are so far ahead. We want to be there. And all of a sudden, crickets for about 5 or 6 weeks. And then what ended up happening was that they announced for Georgia was going to be their site. And we were like, well, what happened? And they said, well, your power was 3 cents higher kilowatt than our power. And so that's when you realize that's putting us at a disadvantage. And you see now when we're buying, how we're getting power into South Carolina is by buying from Vogel, buying from North Carolina.
Rates,
and we cannot do that. We got to generate our own energy and be able to power our state. And we're the fastest growing state per capita. We got people still knocking on the doors to come and create jobs and open facilities here. And all we got to do is have the generation to be able to supply that. And it's going to be gangbusters for South Carolina.
I mean, I can't speak, and I'm not speaking for the speaker, but if you're from California or New York, seats taken. No.
Hey, Atlanta is awesome. Well, let's touch on last thing, budget. Just got that out. What, today?
Yesterday.
Man,
Yesterday. Late night last night, and you've got experience with it. And before you get into it, I want to explain something, because it's an unpopular opinion as I say it. But we voted and issued a joint statement with the Senate that we were not going to do any appropriations, no earmarks, and everyone cheers like, wow, that's great. But for someone that's not on Ways and Means, and you being a former chair of Ways and Means, to me, what I see is if I'm doing an earmark, I'm putting my name on it. I have to show that I'm requesting it. It's usually that 2% range of the total budget. And so there's multiple advantages to it, because it's truly transparent, showing where it is, versus without it, things can get kind of put in line items that you might not be able to catch as easily.
Yeah.
But if we fund it and we fall a little short, then earmarks are the last to get funded. Am I wrong in saying that? That was the simplistic version of the way that I looked at it.
There's a non-recurring proviso that you do, and you list everything. And if we have a shortfall, then the Comptroller General comes in and whacks what is the shortfall. And so you go through the list, and the earmarks always got put at the back of the list. And I've been here where there were years where we had shortfalls and you just lost your project and because of that. But, I think it's important to put in perspective earmarks. And I know it's a dirty word. I see it's the currency of corruption. But we started this process, when we used to do it, we put them on the line for the most part in the 2000s. And then, Sanford came and he would veto everything and we would override the vetoes. And at some point, Nikki Haley came in and Nikki Haley said, look, I understand. I've been here. I can't allow earmarks, but if you'll put in lines and just let us know, then we'll be okay. So the secret was we filled up lines, not with tons of money, because back then it was all in perspective. You got $200,000, you were doing great and getting money for your district, and so but everyone knew about it. And Dick Harpootlian got a check for something he requested from DPS, and he alerted the papers and said, hey, they're hidden earmarks. Well, everybody knew the governor would veto, Henry McMaster would veto those and say, hey, I want you to put it on the line. So when I became Ways and Means Chairman, I said, let's just put it on the line. That's fair. I mean, transparency, you do it, you own it, and you go back and you talk to your citizens at home or across the state is whether that's a worthy project. So we started putting them on the line, and Governor McMaster then at that point started saying, well, you got transparency, and as long as it's not anything crazy, I'm gonna do it.
And he has vetoed some since we've been in
He
office.
has, and ones that are not appropriate, that have problems, absolutely. But at the end of the day, when you talk about earmarks, they're defined in our rule as something not requested by an agency. So let's think about this. So what we're doing is now, if you don't want to do earmarks, then the agencies are in control of the budget rather than the legislature is control of the budget. Because if you come in here and you say, let's say HHS, and you believe that, look at the home care business, people who are coming in to the home rather than having and taking care of elderly people, rather than bringing them into a nursing home. And so their rates are horribly low, and we have got to get those up because these facilities are closing. And so we come in and say, HHS, we want you to fund that. And they say, no, that's not a priority. Well, if we wanted to fund it, you have to put it, it's an earmark at that point. So now the agency is deciding the priorities, not the General Assembly, and we have the constitutional power of the purse.
Isn't that called bureaucracy?
It is, and so what? And this is what Washington D.C. went through after when they banned earmarks for these years, and they started back. And so what would happen is City of Sumter and all cities across this state would go and hire lobbyists to lobby bureaucrats who were not elected, not accountable to, and so at least I'm accountable, you're accountable.
Yep.
And if my citizens and my constituents get to pass on me every 2 years, whether they like what I do or if they don't like what I do, and that's all of us. But when we cede our authority to the unelected bureaucrats, then that's where we've lost our way. And we've done it with regulations. We talked about this regulations bill, but we need to be accountable. You shouldn't let somebody, and I appreciate the dedicated service of numbers of state employees. This is not a bad comment on them. This is the fact that somebody needs to be accountable to the people. And I always say this, when you give the governor all the power in the state, and then can you pick up the phone and get the governor on the line? No. But you pick up the phone, you get Brandon Guffey or Heath Sessions or Murrell Smith, I'm going to call you back, because if I don't call you back, you're not going to vote for me again.
Yeah, right.
And we're the closest to the people.
And we've talked about we've talked about this in several episodes. That is my concern as well. It's exactly what you said, but then also
transparency. Who would have thought?
I know.
And accountability.
The folks who are, say, on the Senate side or on the House side, those folks who are closer to writing that budget, they know the tricks. If they wanted to, they could put it on a line, and we never know it.
First budget.
That's why I've always said, look, that earmark thing, it's transparent. Put it on the line. Every 2 years, your voters are going to say, hey, I didn't like that project you put. I'm not voting for you.
Yeah. Joel Hamilton picks on me a lot of times, and he'll talk about me being honest to a fault. And he's like, Guffey was sitting on council. I was on county council, first budget I'd ever seen. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
I can't figure it out. We're in the middle of a county council meeting. Somebody asked me a question. I was like, look, man, I don't even know what's going on. Like, I'm just trying to figure it out.
I'm just here for the chickens.
But yeah. But once you start learning through it and everything else, it makes it a little bit more simplistic. What I don't like is whenever people try to make it overly simplistic to just say, oh, no, we're, trying to think of a good example, but just saying, oh, we're just going to cut this out. But then you don't understand the ramifications of what happens if you do.
Right. Well, I mean, we all want to have a fiscally responsible budget, but we also want to deliver services to our communities as well, right? So you got to balance.
No one's sitting up here saying, oh, what can I pad my pockets with?
Well, I mean, Bamberg said let's cut $7 billion.
Yeah.
Like the speaker
that
said.
becomes the big thing is this thought process. And I know, I said it last year whenever I came in here. I thought I was walking into the swamp, and that was my approach. Mm-hmm. And what I found was the people I thought were most righteous were the ones that were the most full of shit, and those that I thought were the swamp were more the ones shooting me straight.
Yeah, correct.
Like that became it just became vice versa. Once you got in and started seeing things.
We talked about this numerous times. Speaker Murrell will tell it to you the way we've said it to each other.
Yeah.
When you first put out the agenda, me and Guffey were like, this shit ain't
no way.
And
then it was like year one.
This was like an all-star list of everything that we wanted to do.
It was like, once we do this, what will we ever campaign
What's
on?
next, right? and then we get the pillars this year, and
yeah.
I mean, it looks like. So speaking of that, this session, grade-wise, how do you think we did?
I think, I would give us a B+ to
Okay.
A-. I mean, again, it felt slow.
It did.
And
then it came on at the end.
And it came on at the end. But you got to think, we started at the latest possible time we could start, and we started a new session. And after we had all that success last year, I would get anxious and say, why aren't bills on the floor? Why aren't bills on the floor?
Yeah.
And they were like, these are tough issues. You've got to let the committees do the work. And y'all know how I preach about it. I think the committees do the work, vet the bills, get to understand what the problems are, what the pros and cons of the bills are, and we got to give them time to work, and they had to work. And it started rolling at the end of February, and I get anxious when we have 5 or 6 weeks and we're not passing by anything but local bills or stuff like that. But it slowly rolled out, and I think if you look at the cumulative thing of what we want to do, and I can already tell you the narrative that I'm hearing from our detractors are we did nothing. So if you're going to tell me that getting energy into South Carolina is doing nothing, if passing a liquor liability bill that cracking that tough issue of joint and several, and I think we had a unanimous vote on the bill yesterday on the liquor liability. If it wasn't unanimous, it was pretty darn close.
Yeah, I think so.
And so, you got that. You got the tax reform, and you look at we passed DEI this year. School choice. I mean, these are big issues, and for those of you who believe that, who are here and saying, "Oh, that's nothing," I can remember when school choice first got introduced in 2006. And they couldn't hardly find sponsors for the bill. Nobody wanted to sponsor it. Everyone said this was going to ruin our public schools. And then now we're here on the cusp of another school choice bill. I mean, these are things that when 20 years ago, nobody would imagine would happen in South Carolina, and now we're doing it.
I agree.
Well,
I agree.
And I said it before. I think our freshman session, your freshman as a speaker,
yeah,
I feel like was the most conservative out of 124 sessions in the state in the South Carolina history. I felt like coming in this session, our focus was going to be on being the most efficient. And we showed our commitment to that with the small business regulatory freedom bill of Jeff Bradley put together is going to eliminate 20 to 25% of all regs year one. and then sunset every reg by year 7.
We still waiting on the Senate on that?
Yeah, sitting in Rankin's committee. Now, we've got a few Hail Marys. I've been busting my tail, and
Right.
I'm not used to playing both sides of the chamber.
You know, I
here,
went over and spoke
but
with the senator, remain unnamed, and I think they're going to get to that.
I'm hoping.
So
So I've been
It'll be
trying to
nice.
do anything and everything I
Yeah.
can, because if we can get
All right,
that done,
so-
that would be huge.
we got one more day left of this year. What are you looking forward to next year? You got any goals?
Well, we got pillars left to complete over
what's
there.
next, right?
Well, that's a good idea, a good
Yeah.
question, because I don't have them committed to memory. I can tell you what we've done. I don't know what
I
we
do
have
know
to do.
that, you know, Chair Lady Davis over in 3M, her and I were talking, we do have a parental rights bill on raising the age of consent from 16 to 18 that we've been discussing, looking at the merits of that bill. In principle, we like the idea. You know, obviously, parents need to be involved in decisions when it comes to their kids, whether
Yeah.
it's schools, medical procedures, all those types of things. So,
What, social media?
yeah.
I mean, we're going to have to readdress that bill
Yeah.
because I think Senator Bennett and the changes that they made in the Senate were a little too drastic. It's too much to try and take on.
Yeah.
To just agree to send it to conference.
Well, and speaking of, we have the ad hoc PBM committee.
Yes.
There's probably going to be some legislation. I think Representative Schuessler did a copay accumulator bill in LCI sub this morning. By the way, love the rule changes because we can go committee work all session long. And guess what that does? That tees us up for the first week of January or the 2 weeks of January. We're not waiting around. We now have bills to start working on, you know, and so hopefully we'll get out of the gate faster in that second year.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I mean, parental rights. I think the caucus leadership decided that we wanted to do those. We got a parental education parental rights bill, a medical parental rights bill that we can deal with. And the other issue, now that we got income tax reform done this year, and I know it's over in the Senate, and they're going to have to deal with it, but you'll see us move a small business personal property tax, our personal property taxes on our business furnishings and equipment is outrageous, and we need to deal with that at some point.
I got a little excited here.
Hey, don't tempt him with repealing Act 388.
I've been screaming about 388 for years.
I'm kidding.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, when I
It
talked
ain't
to
gonna
Chairman.
happen. It's not. I know how unpopular it is and how bad
It's
the
like
narrative
the Chinese
is.
vice
It's just
grips, you
so
know,
It
you
is.
just can't get out of it.
You got into it, and my answer to everybody when they say, when are you going to do something about our high property taxes on the 6% is, you know, if you can find me a solution, we're all for it. And I talk to Chairman Peeler about it all the time. That's a big priority of his as well, and it needs to be fixed. But you understand that money goes to the schools and funds our education, and so you just can't eliminate
You
it.
can't eliminate it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good segue. Our next guest will be Chair Lady Shannon Erickson,
Yeah.
and we'll talk to her about what can she do with less money.
I'm glad she can answer that question for you.
Well, Speaker, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the
Thank you so
leadership
much.
that you brought to our caucus and to the body, and I
Yep.
look forward to working with you.
Well,
And we know that you're slammed, so it means a lot for you to come on. And this is just great because this has kind of become an annual thing. But to actually have you come on and, you know, being the Speaker of the House to say, hey, this is what we are trying to do. You
Yeah.
are the leader, and to have you here, it means a lot. So
well,
thank
I
you.
appreciate it, and I'll tell you, all your 2 listeners out there, both of you do a great job. It's an honor to serve with you all. Y'all are dedicated legislators, and you know, and that's what you when you like to see, when you feel like the state is in safe hands, is when you have people who are governing like adults, who take pride in their work and who put in the work. And you know, those are characteristics that
He's talking to me, Guffey.
Oh, no. I have to work twice as hard, but I get there.
But you know, y'all take your job serious, and and they're very fortunate to have you represent them.
All right.
Thank you so much.
This episode of Pints of Politics is brought to you by Comer Distributing. Comer Distributing Company is a wholesale beer distributor located in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Founded in 1971, Comer is a family-owned business that distributes beer and other beverages to York, Chester, Fairfield, Lancaster, Kershaw, Lexington, and Richland counties.
All right.
All right, another special guest on the Sine Die episode.
Somebody that's been just kicking tail and taking names and getting things done, Miss Shannon Erickson. You're out of where? Hilton Head?
Beaufort.
Beaufort.
Yeah, Hilton Head's
come
glitz
on,
and
man.
glam. I'm in
Look,
the old school.
You're gonna
come on.
You are gonna get side eye the rest of this interview, pal.
I actually grew up in the PD, guys, so watch out.
Well, so my grandfather lived in Hilton Head. My stepdad was raised in Hilton Head, or outside. He always says across the bridge. But we would
so that
always
would
go
be
down
Bluffton.
to Bluffton.
Yeah.
And I would actually go most of the time. That whenever I'd hang out, we would always go to the Beaufort waterfront.
Oh.
And we'd hang out at Waterfront Park.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Been to the
to me,
Beaufort
it's
Water
all-
Festival?
I have accidentally one year. We went down there for vacation, and it
You
ended
had
up being
to
the
be
festival.
lost, yeah.
Yeah, but it was so many memories down there on that waterfront
It's a special
to begin
place.
with.
Yeah,
Really
and
is.
I had the pleasure of celebrating my anniversary last fall,
Yeah.
Nice.
and we went to
Yeah.
Beaufort.
Yeah, he
And-
came to see me.
Came over and saw her and her husband, and
Yeah.
great hosts. Yeah, and Beaufort is a great town. It's
I'm
it's
honored to
one
serve
of those. I don't want to get the word out too much, but there's not a lot of folks just invading.
Trying to
that.
keep the Yankees out.
Yeah.
Correct.
Actually,
Hey,
like,
Atlanta.
we're a-
Atlanta is
Atlanta's a
awesome.
good place.
We used to be one of the most prolific movie towns.
Right.
Yeah, the
Yep.
Big Chill, the Great Santini, Forces of Nature, something to talk about. G.I. Jane,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Tarzan,
Yeah, with Ferris
Forrest
Island.
Gump. Most of Forrest Gump was filmed in the
Yep.
Beaufort area.
Yeah, Wes and
all
I
the
were
Vietnam
talking about-
scenes are Hunting Island State Park.
Yeah,
Wow.
Wes and I were talking about that when the film incentive stuff came up,
Yeah.
or the tax credits that came
I
up.
feel like the only thing I should say is, sorry, I smell like cigarettes.
So,
Ah.
wanted to bring you on because we were talking about education because we did get school choice out this year.
We did.
Finally.
Education Savings Account Trust Fund for the second time, taking on that independent school, faith-based, and private education piece that got thrown out from the Supreme Court last session.
Right.
We took it on. We listened to the Supreme Court. We followed kind of the breadcrumbs they left us in there too, the dissenting opinion and the opinion of the majority, and tried to craft a piece that the Senate and the House put together. And I'm really proud of the work we did. Very collaborative, and the governor signed it this morning. So it
Nice.
is.
Awesome.
It's really an excellent piece of work to be done in one legislative year.
Right.
That's just nuts.
And that's what we kept getting here when folks opposed school choice. They kept saying, Garvin got us last Thursday, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's he kept going back to that well of it's unconstitutional, this is unconstitutional. And I think this bill and the effort that you led over on our side, Hembry over on the Senate side, I thought basically you took those opinions as instruction manuals and said,
Completely.
okay, they're telling us what's unconstitutional in version 1. And I remember our freshman term. I don't know if you remember this. Chair Lady Erickson went up and told us, this is going to happen. We're going to pass this out. The Supreme Court may say it's unconstitutional, but that will give us feedback. That will give us a path forward to where in
Gives
the
you the
next
blueprint.
term.
Exactly. I mean,
You
this
know?
Like
was a
whenever
work
you're
in
a
progress.
contractor, you call
Yeah.
for an inspection just so you can see what else you got to do.
That was our inspection, and I really have not ever tried to mislead anyone that this wasn't a process. And
Yeah.
as an educator, I look at lifelong learning, and we have learned over a lifetime on this issue. And I am hopeful. The key component here is that we didn't define a funding stream. We left it up to the General Assembly.
Right.
We also inserted the piece that makes it directly a trustee. The funds go to an eligible child, and the trustee takes those funds, not our treasurer, not our Department of Revenue, not the Department of Education, not anybody in government.
Right.
Literally a trustee that is hired to handle the accounts for the students. And the eligible child is the key component in this. And I hope and I pray and I expect that we'll get a different opinion. I expect it to go there quickly and find out. But the fact that the governor signed it today, no fanfare, maybe we'll do a ceremonial signing
Right.
later on, but to get it moving, get it moving.
Yeah, no, and that's probably going to be a crown jewel in sort of the education pillar of what we did as a Republican caucus. But I also want to talk about, because you and I happened to cross paths up in the balconies when we had the Teacher of the Year candidates in the chamber, a week ago?
Yeah.
And heard you talking about this educator assistance.
The Educator Assistance Act, the House passed 5 times, guys.
Right.
5 times. And the Senate finally got around to passing it once. The governor also signed that into law this morning. It's a
Right.
huge win for our teachers.
Yes.
And Governor McMaster has been truly a stalwart champion for our teachers and for our students. He made that one of the first comments of his first State of the State, and he hasn't been just lip service. He has really meant it. We tried to back him up. This is one of those things that's going to help teachers with just red tape and paperwork.
So explain to the 2 listeners what that, just in a nutshell, what that does, because I did not realize this isn't a headline, right?
No.
This is one of those things that's probably middle tier.
Actually makes a difference.
It doesn't get a lot of fanfare, but for the folks it impacts, it's vitally important, and it's a great recruiting tool
It is.
for new teachers.
We heard Dr. Barbara Nielsen, a former superintendent of education who passed away this year, sadly, headed our teacher recruitment and retention committee that worked for a year on this issue. And we've been taking pieces of her report, and this was one of the largest. Our teachers do very specific teacher certifications, and they have to redo those certifications every 5 years. They were having to jump through hoops to do not only paperwork, but also pay for college courses along the way, out of their own pocket, to redo the certifications. There's not a single other profession we do that to in the state of South Carolina.
Right.
And these are people who are with our children spending more hours than just the 6.5 of instruction.
Yeah.
And we're making them do this. We're also tying up the administration. I heard from many schools that that's the only job the assistant so-and-so in the school did, because they were constantly chasing this paperwork and getting all that documentation. Now, once you get certified, you stay certified. And the school is required to offer professional development
Like
to
every
keep
other
that.
degree.
Like
Yeah.
every
CEs,
other place.
GMEs, whatever,
Yeah.
depending on what the industry is.
And what it says is, teachers, we respect you. And that is huge.
I totally agree.
Huge. The other part of it is the contracts. We were asking our teachers to sign blank contracts. Do you know another job that would sign a blank contract? They'd look at you and say, no, thank you.
Nope.
But they did it because they believed in the children and they believed in the job. Now they're going to get a contract with details.
It is a selfless service.
It is.
for
It
the-
is.
what
These
the
people
teachers
don't do it for the salary. They
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
do it because it's a calling.
The things you don't hear an educator say is, especially a young one, is, I'm going to be a teacher so I can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never, right?
No.
And so I just really appreciated that effort. Again, I didn't know that we had passed it 4 times until I crossed paths with her. I'm saying hello to a friend who was Rock Hill District Teacher of the Year, and Megan Caldwell, and she was up there just saying congratulations to everyone. And she's talking in one of her conversations. I hear her talk about this educator assistance. I'm like, I'm going to have to ask her.
Hey,
about
wait a minute.
Yeah, because you don't want to look like
It's-
an idiot in front of a bunch of teachers. So I'm like, I'll ask her
Well,
about
it's
that
not
later.
a flashy thing.
No,
it's
correct.
not flashy, but it's so meaningful. I mean, we've now given teachers contracts. We've also, if they broke a contract, even if it was to move from the area with a military spouse.
That's right.
They lost their certification for a year, and that was in law.
Yeah.
Now they can submit a reason and go through like any other job situation. Okay, thank you. All right. If there is cause, there are now options for how long they would lose their certification. So it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. We've just made it a whole lot better for teachers to be able to be treated as professionals across the board. We also set up a leave bank. So if you've got a family who's struggling and you're a teacher with extra leave banked in your program, or you're going to lose leave. Teachers very rarely take days off, and they'll lose leave if they don't use
right.
the
If
days.
they don't use it, right.
They can now give them to other people, and if you know teachers, you know they take good care of each other, and that's something that had started in a few districts. We grandfathered those so that we didn't change a thing, but we also offer it voluntarily for any other district with that bill to allow that
So
to happen.
Representative Guffey, if you want to give that Legislator of the Year award, to.
Hey, you've done.
That was unexpected surprise.
That was
this
that was
weekend.
well deserved.
No,
I
no,
was
no, it
very
was.
happy to see that. But
Yeah.
the House Education and Public Works Committee has worked hard this year. And
I tell you,
Yeah.
I think we've all joked around about it to each other in the halls. Like every time, it would seem like she had a big bill coming up, and then the next day she'd be up there again. I'm like,
Yeah.
jeez.
I know y'all got tired of me being up there, and I'm sorry about that. But
No, there's a lot
you know,
of work.
Education and Public Works is kind of interesting. I mean, we got the golf cart bill passed.
Yeah, but
So-
think about it.
I try to tell people all the time, the most important thing is having the trust of the person that's at the well telling you the information. There are certain amendments that come up, and I'm like, wow, that sounds great. But you know what? That person's lied to me.
Yeah,
I don't know how
that's
many
not cool.
times.
That's not cool.
And it's hard to support them on amendments, and then you back out.
Yeah.
But whenever you come up there, whenever it comes to education, and Ray Felder was one of the people whenever I came in, I always said, if you're counting on me for education, then we failed.
Oh, correct.
So I would lean on Ray and say, hey, what does this do?
And that's what we always talked about with our delegation.
She's like, hey, lean on Shannon.
Yep.
Shannon's not going to steer you wrong.
I do my best, and I believe very strongly in what you just said. I think there's a responsibility that goes with being the chairman of a committee, but also as a member of that committee. I'm going to brag for a minute. I call our committee the Dream Team. I am amazed at the work and the collaboration that has happened in House Education and Public Works.
I disagree from looking at your roster, but, you know.
No.
I'm just kidding.
You can't disagree. You should watch one of our committee meetings. You should also know that the teachers' associations, the parents' associations, the school board association, the superintendent association, when we bring a bill out to the floor, we have collaborated with all those folks ahead of time on purpose.
Hey, I agree, and I think that is sort of demonstrates the leadership that she brings. She's listening to all her members. You know, there's a diversity of thought on that committee. Y'all just passed out the what is it? The third party folks that come into.
Yeah, we're actually going to allow third party therapies.
Yep.
Right now, focused mostly
ABA.
on
Needs to
ABA.
happen.
But first time ever that the school districts and the superintendents and State Department and parents and therapists have all agreed on how to make something like that happen. And especially for our autistic children. I mean, man, they need somebody right there with them, kind of helping them through the prompts of what's going on in their classroom.
Correct. And again, this is one of those issues that Leslie Robinson out of Rock Hill brought to our attention because she had a child going through some of this
Saw
stuff.
her today.
Yeah. And, you know, I was able to sit in on one of your committees that happened to be talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And Chair Lady texted me, you want to speak up on this? And I was like, I mean, I can, if it adds something to the conversation, I can. And enjoyed doing so because David Vaughn had asked a question about what does this look like? Give me a tangible example. And so I was able to say, Representative Vaughn, my son has an IEP. Both of my sons have IEPs. When one's struggling with speech and the school district cannot get the time to get that therapist in because they're so busy around the school, I can bring in my own third-party speech therapist to help Ben with his speech.
Yeah.
Well, I
And
mean,
now
I
it's
have that
allowable per
problem
this
as I'm
legislation.
talking about mental health.
So,
You know, that
And
was one of
that's
the
one of
problems
the
whenever
things.
everything
Yeah.
happened with my son. You know, we were stuck to the school counselor being the one that could be the counselor instead of allowing a counselor to come in.
Right.
And that
they'd work with.
parental
Luckily,
choice.
we had a great counselor.
But that
At
parental
our
choice, Representative Guffey, is really important because that relationship with the child often takes time to build.
Yeah.
And if we can use the same therapist in those situations, then we're not wasting time with a new therapist having to just build a relationship. We're actually able to say, all right, we're going to have a fire alarm in the classroom today, and we're not going to be upset because we're waiting for that alarm sound. As simple as talking through something like that, or we're going to line up, and you're the door holder. You're going to hold the door as we
right.
leave, and that's a great responsibility, and we're going to do it, and we're going to stay right there. We're not going to worry about running to the front because we're in charge of the door. Simple prompts like that to help children who don't easily find their way
Yeah.
is invaluable, and it helps the rest of the day and everything else they've got to do.
and I will also say, and just speaking for my sons, finding that purpose where they're helping a friend, helping a classmate, man, I'm telling you, it brings joy that you wouldn't believe. So, again, I'm so glad you decided to come on with us because
Thanks for having
you
me.
just get to highlight some of these things that maybe not make headlines, right? But this is the work that gets done on your committee in education. And education, like I'm in sort of medical sub, healthcare, it affects every single
Yes.
person here in South Carolina. So appreciate all the hard work
It's
that you
it's an honor.
and your committee have put in to bring these issues to the fore for us to consider and get passed out.
I appreciate you guys giving a little bit of sunlight to some things that aren't always that flashy and pretty, but are
Our
so
platform
necessary.
for 2 listeners is always open to you anytime you want to come on.
Well, I think they're two very important listeners.
Yeah.
And I think any platform where we can be advocates for children is a platform that I'm going to stand up on and be proud. So thanks, guys,
we'll
for
both
giving us
agree
the
with
break.
you there.
Doors always open.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Yeah.
It's old school, baby. Gen X. You millennials wouldn't know anything about that.
I feel like I'm sitting too close to you to have that kind of music playing.
Old super tramp. Well, man, I tell you, this episode, thanks for all of our guests stopping by. Speaker Murrell Smith,
Yes.
Chair Lady Shannon Erickson, Robby, Candace Carroll of Americans for Prosperity. I mean, man,
It's been a busy one.
It has been
We've had a
action-packed
crowd
for sure.
outside.
Yeah.
That was-
So thanks for everybody for joining us on this
The
edition.
biggest thanks to the College of Hospitality, Retail, Sports Management at the premier University of South Carolina,
That's right.
as Heath says.
At the Bev Lab. Hey, and for the 2 listeners, look, he has that written down
Yeah.
on poster board, okay,
I
in
side
big
eyed
letters.
I side eyed it. We just call it the Bev Lab.
Yeah,
Like,
so,
it is, definitely the hidden gem. I
I know
love it.
it's great, and the beer's great, right?
Yes, it really is.
What's that? Your 8th one?
No, second one.
But no, University of South Carolina. Thanks for hosting us again this year. Man, I think we covered a lot. We've talked about a lot: tort reform, tax reform, energy, school choice,
Yes,
conservative budget. I mean, I don't really know how we can close this out, other than thanks for listening and
yeah. Thanks for listening.
yeah.
Thanks for continuing to be the 2 listeners all year long.
Yeah, that's right.
One of the 2.
And how can they check us out? Pints
Go
and
to
Politics?
pintsandpolitics.show. Follow us, and from there you'll have links to YouTube, iHeartMedia, Spotify, Apple, to follow the podcast, or if
Yeah.
you want to watch on YouTube, of course.
Yeah, and look, the 2 listeners, tell some friends, would you?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Share on social media. So,
yep. And we want to thank our longtime sponsor.
Comer Distributing.
Yeah, Comer Distributing out of Rock Hill.
None of this would have happened without that sponsor stepping up
Yeah.
and saying, hey, we got your back. And Chip is a big Gamecock, too. So.
Oh, man. If you don't know Chip Comer and you're at the University of South Carolina, you're missing out.
I mean, he was NIL before there was NIL for the University of South Carolina, I have a feeling.
Look. Why you got to bring up old?
Why you want to bring up old stuff?
But again, this is our last episode before we get out of session.
Yes.
We will probably do a session recap on the next episode.
Yes.
And then we will continue to bring the issues that we're dealing with in the off season to the audience. You and I are both maybe on a DOT ad hoc, I'm hearing.
Yes.
So more ad hoc work to come. I'm still involved with the PBM ad hoc. Are you on that insurance?
I'm on
one
the
too?
insurance rate ad hoc committee
Okay,
as
so
well.
we're
So we
both
got
doing-
2 ad hocs in the off season.
I tell you.
And we've got the what do you call them, the retreats and the conventions and
Oh yeah.
the
Up in Boston.
conventions that we're going to. Yeah. So
Yep.
meeting with other legislators.
Plenty of material that we will be providing in the off season. So stay tuned for all that.
And we've got a governor's race that's going to be coming up.
Yeah.
know,
We'll speculate,
I-
pick a horse, and do all those things.
Well, I think that every
Speaking of
one
picking
the
a horse,
candidates
I did
should come on.
win the Derby pool.
You did?
Yep, that I was in. It was impromptu.
That's
it
a
was,
rich man sport. I don't play none of that.
No. I was sitting at a bar in Charleston having a cocktail before dinner with my wife because
Yeah, that
it was her
doesn't sound
birthday.
rich at all.
Okay, it was a dive bar, whatever. And literally, a guy walks in and was like, "Hey, y'all want to bet on some horses?" And I'm like, "Who the hell is this guy?" And he literally convinced like 20 people at the bar to throw in 10, 20 bucks or whatever.
Like a pool?
Again, hypothetically speaking. And got a pool together. And yeah, I ended up winning it. And I told him, I said, "Hey, just tip the bartender." So she got to take it all home. So
Nice.
yeah, man.
That's good.
I mean, when you throw in 20 bucks and you win 150 bucks, it's like, that's house money. So made her day. She was happy with it.
All that
and,
stuff's too complicated for me. I don't
Hey,
get
it's the most
involved in it.
exciting 2 minutes in sports. Don't go there. All right. Thanks to everybody for listening.
Guffey's good.
We will see you next week.
Maybe present being